What does it mean to be a Unitarian Universalist congregation? Anybody? Have a couple words, what does it mean to be a Unitarian Universalist congregation? And if you're on Zoom, you can put it in the chat.
Side with love.
Side with love.
Freedom of thought.
Freedom of thought.
Be part of a community.
Be part of a community. Inclusiveness, shared values.
Make the world a better place.
Make the world a better place.
Both of those categories.
Christianity and not Christianity. Right?
I've heard it in both, non-denominational is,
Yeah.
as far as I know, a version of.
Yes. Yes, exactly. Yes. Thank you, Ferguson. Anyone online, Nicholas?
Yeah, Joyce Porter said a community of faith.
Community of faith. So I'll add a few. What I would add is a little more boring. Congregational polity, religious liberalism, and UU heritage. The stuff that we say about our beliefs, which usually comes up when we try to explain to people about what it means to be a UU congregation, are not actually a requirement to be a UU congregation, because we have no doctrine or creed that all congregations must teach or adhere to. The 7 principles, which so many of us know and love, sometimes function like a doctrine, but they're not universally binding statement of UU belief. The principles are the current wording of a covenant or promise that lives in Article 2 of the UUA bylaws. Not all UU communities are members of the UUA, although most are. 1,025 to be exact, and Charles fact-checked me, including UUSM. As a member congregation of the UUA, UUSM is bound to other member congregations by the covenant articulated in Article 2. And as member congregation, we here at UUSM have a role in shaping that covenant through the democratic process of our faith. And that's what this whole Article 2 revision thing is all about. Are you with me?
Yes.
Great. Unitarian Universalism doesn't have a central religious hierarchy or denominational authority that hands down decisions or decrees. Rather, we share with our Congregationalist cousins a more horizontal or democratic structure in which each congregation governs itself, financially supports itself, and chooses its own ministers. Because we lack a centralized authority structure, some say that Unitarian Universalism isn't even a denomination or a single religious entity. That we're just a collection of free congregations sharing a name, a heritage, a style of polity, and some common values. I disagree. I think we are something greater than a collection of anti-authoritarian freethinkers in siloed congregations. Or at least we ought to be, if we believe we have something important enough to move forward in the world together. Like a set of shared values that are worth promoting, or a common vision worth striving for collectively as Unitarian Universalists. That something greater is why I decided to become a UU minister. And it's why I'm a strong supporter of the Unitarian Universalist Association. The word denomination doesn't bother me, but I like the word movement better. Because the word movement captures one of the things I value most about Unitarian Universalism: openness to change. Openness to change and new ideas is one of the primary characteristics that differentiates religious liberalism from religious orthodoxy or fundamentalism. Instead of holding fast to particular religious expressions and forms as timeless truth with a capital T, religious liberals find meaning and value in the continuous discovery of revelation or truth with lowercase t, and Charles mentioned this in the beginning of the service. As our understanding of what's true evolves, Religious liberals believe our ways of expressing truth and meaning should evolve too. Unitarian Universalism is only one type of religious liberalism, of course. We're so far on the liberalism side of the spectrum that some think we've taken the whole openness to change thing too far, leaving the Protestant Christian fold entirely, opening ourselves to atheism and humanism, and welcoming Jews, Buddhists, Muslims, Hindus, neo-pagans, and more, anyone who shares our values and abides by our covenants. We really are what religious fundamentalists would consider a nightmare as a religion. And we bear out their critiques of liberalism too, that it leads to change in traditional structures and forms, sometimes dramatic change. Being open to new ideas and change is risky. You don't know where you'll end up, who you'll associate with, or even who you'll eventually become. Few of our early Unitarian and Universalist ancestors would have predicted how pluralistic we've become, or how many women leaders we have, much less the growing number of LGBTQ people, people of color, and disabled people filling leadership roles in our movement today. I'm so grateful our Unitarian and Universalist ancestors and generations after them were willing to take the risk of embracing openness to change as a religious orientation. Still, the question remains, what holds us together in all this diversity as UU? Here again, the UUA plays a critical role. Since Unitarianism and Universalism merged in 1961, the UUA has provided a platform for UUs to explore and articulate who we are and what we share. The current UUA principles are by far the most widely known and influential expression of what we hold in common, the closest thing we have to a statement of belief. But it too has changed over time, reflecting new perspectives, understandings, and experiences. The original statement of the UUA's principles and purposes was created in 1960 as the Unitarians and Universalists were consolidating. At the time, the wording was hotly contested. After extensive debate, a compromise was finally reached, and the original 6 principles were adopted as expressing what UU congregations unite in seeking. The original version of Article 2 was revised in 1985 after a comprehensive grassroots process led by UU women. The general concepts of the original principles were retained, but the wording was changed to reflect the new value of gender inclusivity and a growing desire to include respect for the web of life. A list of 5 sources was also added to Article 2 at that time to acknowledge our growing pluralism. 10 years later, in 1995, an additional source was added to include earth-centered traditions. So the principles, seemingly so foundational in our tradition, have never been static or fixed, nor were they meant to be. The UUA bylaws state that the principles and purposes must be reviewed every 15 years. But they haven't been significantly revised since 1985. So they feel more fixed than they might otherwise have been. On the other hand, just because we commit to reviewing our principles and purposes on a regular basis doesn't mean we have to revise them. Perhaps they still express what we want them to. However, in the past few years, it's becoming clear that many UUs don't feel Article 2 adequately expresses the central purposes and values of our evolving tradition. Many feel the current principles are neither poetic enough nor spiritually deep enough to hold us in times of great need or to guide us during ethical and spiritual crises. A list of principles might be effective in stating what we affirm and promote as UUs, but when we're facing a new diagnosis or the loss of a beloved, how many of us turn to the principles for guidance and comfort? Many have also asked, where is love? So fundamental to our UU theological heritage in the current principles. As one of my colleagues puts it, our current principles state the what of our covenant, but not the why. For many Unitarians, Universalists, and Unitarian Universalists throughout history, love is the why. Hence its centrality in the graphic and in the new revision. Many UUs feel the revised version will better serve us in continuing to grow and expand as a vibrant and transformative faith movement that not only welcomes diverse new perspectives, but is willing to change along with them. Others, of course, feel the current version is fine just the way it is, deeply beloved even, or at least preferable to the proposed revision for various reasons. Many feel a great sense of loss at the prospect of revising Article 2, particularly the principles. Although when you compare the versions, you'll notice, and you might have heard this already, that key concepts and phrases have been woven in to the revision in order to ensure continuity. And it's also important to remember that revising Article 2 does not mean we have to stop using the principles. The UUA principles will always remain part of our heritage, available to us and to future generations as important expressions of our faith. Now, I'm really not trying to convince you of anything except the importance of engaging our living tradition. Being part of a democratic religious tradition is both inspiring and challenging. It asks us to participate in the ongoing creation of Unitarian Universalism. Each one of us has a say in who we become, but only if we engage in the process. Educate ourselves, reflect, and discuss like we're doing right now. Contribute ideas, listen, serve as a delegate for UUSM. Whether you're a delegate or not, I encourage you to attend General Assembly in June this year. It is entirely virtual, so it's much more easily accessible than it is when it's held in geographic location. Although it's always probably going to be hybrid from now on. You'll learn so much about the larger movement that we're part of if you attend GA. Engaging in the Article 2 revisioning process could also be useful in the transition work here at UUSM. It might help you clarify the values that will guide you as a congregation in making decisions about your future. One common theme that has emerged in our transition work so far is a desire to re-engage with communities and networks beyond these walls. This bodes well for your future, my friends. Our times call for greater connection and collaboration, not going it alone. For listening, not just to those who have brought us to this moment, but to those who will carry us forward into the future as well. So I invite you to read the materials we handed out today and reflect on them, talk with each other, and take the opportunity to shape our living tradition. Charles and Pam are going to tell you more about ways you can engage, some more details about what the stakes are at this point. Engaging the democratic processes that shape our institutions and our collective lives is so critically important at this time. It's a practice. It's something we must do for those who come after us so they can shape the future too, one day. One day.